Back to the daily grind, and shout out to the full-time patrons. Make sure to hit subscribe if you're new and hit thumbs up if you're not a baby back bagel biting bitch boy, cause you know what time it is. It's full time.
MMA.
It's your boy Taco Bell Wani, and I gotta start this video off with a big shout out to my dog Santiago Montano for the $50 donation. Normally I don't say the last name, but I just did a video on Nico Montano, so I was just curious if there's any relation, because if so, this dude might want his 50 back. No, I'm just kidding, but I did just do that video on Nico Montano, who just went off on Ariel Helwani. That shit was crazy low-key. Didn't expect that, but we've got some good news aside from the fuckery of the last video. Thank you very much for the $50, Santiago M, and also my dog Cardell Jeffrey for the little bit of betting advice, if you know what I'm saying. Me and him look like we might be have some stuff figured out to try and help your boy full-time go from the fake money betting to some real money betting, if you know what I'm saying. But with that being said, let's get into the news. Max Holloway versus Brian Ortega, we know, is at UFC 226. That whole card is insane. I believe Michael Chiesa versus Anthony Pettis even just got added to that card, but we already had Derek Lewis versus Francis Ngannou, champion versus champion super fight between Daniel Cormier and Stipe Miocic. Of course, this title fight, Holloway versus Ortega, Mike Perry versus Yancy Medeiros, Paulo Costa versus Uriah Hall. UFC 226 is going to be stacked, and of course the night before you've got the Ultimate Fighter finale with Israel Adesanya versus Brad Tavares, the Ultimate Fighter winners. That's just going to be a great weekend of fights. It's International Fight Weekend, tough finale, UFC 226, but after Max Holloway and Brian Ortega square off, the winner, we have both of these guys have already talked about moving up and fighting Khabib Nurmagomedov. Now, that's always an option, of course. We'll have to see where Khabib's at, who he's going to be fighting. You know, it's a work in progress, of course. It's not a guarantee that the winner of this fight is going to get to fight Khabib next, because Khabib, once he comes back from Ramadan, we've got Conor McGregor ready for a title shot, a lot of lightweights up there, Dustin Poirier, Eddie Alvarez, Kevin Lee. So we'll see if the UFC looks for more champion versus champion super fights, or if they try and get some of these divisions, you know, rolling as far as the contenders are concerned. But if that is the case, if the UFC does want to do another champion versus champion super fight, I mean, this card is going to be on the same card as Cormier versus Miocic, so maybe the winner of this fight goes to his own champion versus champion super fight. We saw Max Holloway agreed to fight Khabib Nurmagomedov at UFC 223 on short notice, but unfortunately he only had 6 days. They didn't have time to cut the weight on the last day, got super close, the doctor stopped him from cutting weight, and Ali Quinta ultimately ended up facing Khabib Nurmagomedov. But Brian Ortega's another guy that got the call. Hey man, we need a replacement. Tony Ferguson's out. Can you take the fight? And Brian Ortega said yes. But you know, there were multiple guys that said yes. Max Holloway was the best choice at that time. So Brian Ortega didn't get the fight, but he was open to fighting Khabib. And I have to admit, Brian Ortega, T-City, Triangle City, he's known for his jiu-jitsu, but he just became the first person to ever knock out Frankie Edgar, so he's also got some power on him. I mean, Brian Ortega's got one of the better style matchups against Khabib Nurmagomedov. Khabib has been dominating every single striker that has been matched up against him. The best strikers in the world, some of the best lightweights in the world. Edson Barboza, Michael Johnson. Who else did Khabib just dominate? Ali Quinta. All of these guys are more known for their striking, but once Khabib had success in his striking against even them. He was jabbing Ali Quinta up. He was outstriking Ali Quinta. After he tore Edson Barboza down and, you know, out dominated him in the first round, and he was able to outstrike Edson Barboza, you know, in the second round and some of the third round. So Khabib, even though his striking, according to Joe Rogan, isn't the most technically savvy striking, he's coming a long way in his striking, but he's a lot more known for his dominant ground and pound and grappling. But Brian Ortega's a guy like Tony Ferguson. You look at him versus Khabib as a very appealing matchup, because he's not a guy, it's like, oh, if Khabib gets him down, it's over. He's just gonna fucking smash like chicken. No, Brian Ortega's gonna be attacking with submissions and also with elbows from the bottom, he says here. This is what Brian Ortega had to say. Not too many people present a good ground game from the bottom. They survive a little bit and it's kind of boring, but not too many people are attacking from the bottom, hurting with elbows. They don't bring that kind of game because it takes a long time to develop. Whereas me, I grew up in that situation where I was always the bottom guy. Pause. He didn't say pause, but either way. He said, always getting beat up by these guys. So I had to adapt my game to that. I was curious as to what was going to happen. So it's definitely on my radar. I have a big fight right now with Max Holloway. That's the one for sure. But Khabib is on my radar. I have to be successful on July 7th against Max Holloway, and hopefully I can make that happen afterward. So you definitely don't want to look past a title fight, you know, getting too ahead of yourself. Yeah, I mean, even if you're not fighting for a title, you don't want to start thinking about your possible other matchups and, oh, if I win this fight, this is all possible, because you have to get that job done. You have to focus on the task ahead of you, especially when you got a fucking killer Max Holloway, who's the current featherweight champion that's been clearing out the division and fucking taking everybody out. Jose Aldo twice, hasn't lost in 10 or 11 fights on a win streak, Max Holloway. So that's a very tough task Brian Ortega has ahead of him. But if he is able to beat Max Holloway, he's open to a fight with Khabib Nurmagomedov, and he also provides an interesting style matchup to that fight. So it'll be a possible champion versus champion super fight in 2019, maybe the end of 2018, if Conor McGregor doesn't decide to come back, or if Khabib doesn't defend against a different #1 contender. But Khabib has alluded in the past to the fact that he wants to fight the #1 guy, the rightful #1 contenders and stuff like that. So we've got a lot of stuff to play out. But Brian Ortega is open to fighting Khabib Nurmagomedov, which we kind of knew when he accepted the fight on short notice. But now that he's thought about it, he's even more salivating at it, like, man, I could attack this dude from the bottom, provide a whole new fight. I could be the guy to take Khabib 0. He's 26-0, gonna be 26-1 fucking with T-City. Let's get it. With that being said, it is what it is. Let the full-time family know what you think about Brian Ortega open to fighting Khabib after Max Holloway at UFC 226. I'm out. And as always, thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the subscribe button and also hit the notification bell right next to it so you're notified every time I upload a video. I'm out.
This is #1 bullshit.